it was interesting hearing how most of them had jobs that you wouldn't expect. And they were all a couple years out of school. So either maybe they had done a graduate program, but it showed me how sometimes you feel like you're on this one path or trajectory and how it really is kind of this winding road where you could end up somewhere else.
Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults, and we also talk about being thriving adults ourselves. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. Here on the podcast, I share my experiences parenting 5 now adult kids and working with thousands more as a summer camp director for the past 4 decades. I'm the author of Happy Campers, and I love sharing encouragement and ideas for living more positive, connected lives. Topics I researched extensively for my master's in psychology and continue to explore today. I created this podcast as a place to share what I've learned and to encourage us all to raise and be thriving adults. Hey, Sunshine Parenting listeners, welcome to this episode of the podcast. This is, I believe, going to be the final episode in this Tough Twenties series. And following this episode, I'll be taking a little break, probably till about mid-February, and then be starting a new series. But today, we're wrapping it up with 2 of the previous Tough Twenties guests, Owen Monkey and Gretchen Rook. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today what I wanted is to basically just let the 2 of you have a conversation. And we've mentioned throughout the series that the Defining Decade, the book that you both have read, is something that is actually a great book to read with a friend or make a little book club out of it. And Gretchen, you have done a book club. You've led a book club with some camp counselors last summer. And Owen, you're planning on doing a book club once you can get your friends to finish reading the book.
Yeah, might be a while.
So I thought tonight Gretchen could sort of share some of the questions and ideas that came up that were kind of interesting topics this summer when you were leading the book club. And so Owen can both hear some questions and you can also guide him through some ideas of how you've used the book or kind of made it a better talking point among your friends. So here you go.
So one of the things we kind of talked about a lot this summer was the idea of identity capital and how our experiences, and whether they're professional, work-related experiences or personal things that we do, they shape us and help us tell the story about ourselves. And one day that story can really help you connect with someone in an interview, and maybe get that job you really wanted. In what ways, Owen, do you feel like you're building that identity capital right now? And then I'll kind of share some of mine too.
Yeah, I feel like over the last several years, starting to get older into the working age, and you're able to go more places and start trying more hobbies and things like that. I've tried to kind of just start putting myself out there and trying new things, even just from, earlier on in high school and before that, just trying new sports I'd never done before. And then now I'm just picking jobs that I normally wouldn't take. Last summer, I was lifeguarding for the full summer, and I did that. I didn't really plan on it. It kind of just happened, and it was a really good experience. Just kind of building experiences like that where they don't just kind of come to you. You kind of have to seek them out a little bit, and it's stuff that you normally wouldn't do. I think I have been doing some of that, trying to build my identity capital and experiences. And I feel like a lot of my friends and roommates as well also, feel like they don't have a lot of identity capital, which is kind of how I felt. And doing some of those things and thinking about it like that does help.
I feel like I love that you decided to be a lifeguard last summer. That required a lot of prep and training. And I feel like you not only built a fun community, but I felt like you learned a lot from what you told me. And I know a lot of people, when getting a summer job, they just think, I have extra time. How can I make a little bit of money? But I think it's really cool that you went kind of above and beyond and found something that maybe was a little more challenging I don't know, do you feel like it was outside of your comfort zone, or do you feel like you learned some new skills from that job last summer?
Yeah, definitely. It was kind of interesting at first because it really does not like pertain to the career I want to go into at all. Like it's not gonna be like a good like stepping stone to an internship or something like that. And it didn't really even pay that well either. So it was really like more about me wanting to like do it for the experience. And it was definitely like a challenge. Like the training it was like 6 weeks where like because I was in the middle of school still, and it was like every weekend for Saturday and Sunday, like 11 hours each day. And I had to like drive like 45 minutes to get there. So it was just a lot of time commitment, and all of that was unpaid too. So it was really just doing it for the experience then and like for the job in the summer. But I learned like a ton of skills I never would have learned, and like all the first aid stuff and water safety is all like useful stuff, even not going into lifeguarding for many years or anything. It's just good stuff I'm going to take into the rest of my life. And even just like the discipline, kind of the structure they had set up, having to like show up, you have to be there like early, and you have to be like all stretched and ready to go by the time you start the training. That's not like part of the training. So you have to like really plan out your schedule. And because I was so far away, I had to plan out driving there, and I had to like pack a lunch and like do all that. So it really like made me have a firm schedule that I had to follow. And it was pretty difficult, but it was definitely a good experience, and I like gained a lot from it.
That's great. And I do feel like even if you feel like it's unrelated, it will end up, you never know when one experience or one, job you've had will come back around and either help you in an interview or some skill that you learned you'll need in another job. So I think it's awesome that you're trying kind of different things, even if maybe they don't align completely with what you think you'll do one day. I remember one of my professors at Santa Clara, I was at a panel, and the panel was all the students were Santa Clara graduates on the panel who had graduated with psychology majors. And it was interesting hearing how most of them had jobs that you wouldn't expect. And they were all a couple years out of school. So either maybe they had done a graduate program, but I think it showed me how sometimes you feel like you're on this one path or trajectory, and how it really is kind of this winding road where you could end up somewhere else. And that's kind of how I feel right now with working on my research. I'm in a program at Fresno State. I'm in the last year of my doctoral program. And as a teacher, I found that my camp experience as a counselor really helped me connect with my students when I started teaching. I think it's really exciting that in my research, I get to focus on that connection of how might teachers be better prepared to teach through camp counseling or through working at a camp. And so I've already been able to kind of bridge two experiences that are a little bit similar. But I think a lot of things happen like that, where people think I'll get the perfect job out of college. And maybe you just get a job that's kind of a stepping stone or the perfect job for that time in your life. But then all of those experiences kind of work together to put you in situations and I guess set you up for something that you might not even expect or know
I feel
about.
like a lot of the early 20s especially, but all the 20s, it's not like if you do something or take a certain job or pick a major, that's not like set in stone. It's not like your entire life has been laid out because you took a certain job. And I know a lot of people at school, I joined some like finance and investment clubs and stuff like that. A lot of the people there are so set. It's like they're only going to get a finance internship. If they don't, it's like the end of the world. They're not going to be able to break into the market. And then I'm hearing people talk about like way out of college. They're like, yeah, I was like a psychology major, or communication major, or like something super random. And they have a job completely different from what they are. Or they were a finance major and are like a lifeguard or something, like completely. It does like it's just the crossover. It doesn't really like matter necessarily what you do. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that like headspace of like, it really matters like completely what your major is or what job you get.
I had one point to make. Another thing, I remember you mentioning during or kind of after your lifeguard experience is the work culture. And it was interesting to me because like you had some observations of like similarities and differences to working at camp, and particularly in a department that you worked on at camp. And that is one of those kind of meta level things that you also gain. So if you work a few different places, you start understanding that it's not just the work itself that makes the experience, it's also how the community gets along, kind of the work ethic, some of the kind of unwritten or written rules that dictated things. So that was another part of it that is also, I think just these more experiences are all kind of, you're learning all this stuff. So like if you are one day find yourself leading a team or group and setting the culture, you have some ideas of what helps do that. And so you can't get that without kind of doing a few different things and, seeing what that's like.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point too, Mom, that people, I mean, I know at Santa Clara in the Bay Area, people would have lists of companies they wanted to work for. Like, I want to work for Apple or Google or Facebook. And like you said, thinking about kind of where you want to work in terms of how do you want to feel and what kind of community do you want to be a part of is equally or more important. But it often isn't a priority. And I think some people end up in jobs they're unhappy with because they took a job that is maybe like something that looks really great on paper, but maybe doesn't have that community or culture that they want.
I think in maybe the very first episode I mentioned, and I put a link to Cal Newport talking about life-centric career planning. And it's a really interesting concept that you want a career that's interesting to you, that you're engaged with, that you like, but you also need to think about what kind of lifestyle comes with that career, where it is, what's the like, what I mean? And so it's interesting that people are very fixated on like a specific company, and maybe it's because of the prestige related to that company or the pay or something like that. But really in the long run of life, your like life satisfaction is going to be more related to the whole big picture, like all the things Meg J talks about in her book, not just your job. Job is important, but there's like all these other things too. And your job does play a big role in how those other things go. Like if your job requires you to be there for however many hours, some really crazy number of hours, that's hard to like have a family, or sometimes it's even hard to meet someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll hire a lot of leads like first year, especially in the finance industry and like investment banking industry. A lot of these first year jobs and first year like analysts, they are working like crazy hours, like every hour of the day. They don't really like leave their apartments. It's like not really possible to have a healthy like lifestyle. You get like exercise. You don't really meet people. You don't have time to like hang out with people. And it's just and so the pay is really good, but you don't really have any time to spend it or anything. You just kind of like locked in your room. So
Doesn't sound fun. And I think the other thing that came up a lot that I think is interesting to talk about, and this was in Meg J's recent updated version of her book. She talked about her experience teaching on Semester at Sea, or teaching for Semester at Sea, which, side note, I think I want to do one day. Hopefully, we'll see. But it sounded so cool. She got to go, and I think she brought her family. And she didn't talk so much about her experience specifically, but she did talk about how she had a lot of opportunities while at sea to talk and spend time with these groups of college students who had very limited access to technology. And she said there was this 3-week stretch where there was limited to no social media, internet access. And all of the college students on the ship said they were so much happier. They planned talent shows, they played card games, they just had a lot of quality time together, and they all absolutely loved it. And I think we've experienced the same thing at camp, where we have these summers where we're unplugged and we have that structure in place to help us unplug from technology, but it can be hard too. It's not a perfect system, especially when you're just managing your smartphone and social media usage on your own. What do you think, Owen, are some tools that you use, or what do you think, how do you want to use social media, or how often do you want to use it?
yeah, I used to use it a lot more. I've been trying to cut back just because it really takes away a lot of hours of the day. And it's oftentimes I'd look back and it would be like, oh, I spent 3 hours on my phone doing this today. I could have, all the hours, if you add all those up, I could have been learning all this other stuff or reading some books or like exercising, doing something more useful. And it would just like bum me out when I would look at it and be like, oh, I kind of just wasted all this time. So that was like part of the motivator for it. And also just, I would look around and see everybody else just on their phones all the time. I'd be like, wouldn't it be so much nicer if everybody would just kind of like do something else? And so I like deleted some apps off my phone. Like I would delete Instagram, and I didn't like delete my whole account, and I'll still like go on my computer every once in a while and look at it, but it's not as easy to get like accidentally caught up in Instagram if you have to like go on your computer for it. So that's like one of those things I was doing. And then I've tried downloading some of the apps that like restrict the screen time too, and that helps as well. But I've overall just trying to like completely like cut off of like portions of the day where it's just like not like I don't do anything. Right when I wake up, I don't go on my phone right when I wake up for like at least like an hour. Like I try to like wake up first, even if it means like I have to get up a little bit earlier. I'll just kind of like, make my breakfast, do other stuff without my phone, and then I'll go on and check everything, and kind of the same thing in the night before I go to bed. So just trying to block off little times where I like don't use it. It's made my sleep a lot better too.
That's great. I've tried to be mindful, and I feel like I have the morning. I also don't go on right away in the morning because my daughter Hazel wakes up. And so I go and get her, and then we have playtime and breakfast and our little routine. And so normally I don't check my phone until either we both are going to FaceTime a relative or someone together, or she goes down for her first nap, and that's when I check. And so I feel like I've been able to, she has helped me a little bit to manage my social media usage and technology usage. If I'm ever playing with her, if I'm waiting for a call or I expect a call from someone, I'll keep my phone in my back pocket, but not somewhere where I can just reach for it or have it in front of me and in front of her. And then if I am not expecting anything or there's no reason I need it near me, which is most of the time, I can keep it in another room on the counter. I think it's kind of the whole idea of having a phone on the dinner table during a meal, just kind of the presence of it says like your priority is in two places. And so I've really tried to think about that with Hazel, unless it's absolutely necessary or we're doing some communication together, like we're calling grandma, then I try to keep it away. So I'm not scrolling or checking emails when I'm in front of her. I'm spending time with her. But social media is a hard one for me because I love to occasionally share. I don't really feel a lot of jealousy. I like seeing kind of updates from other people. So for me, it's something that I definitely want to continue to manage. I'd love to keep social media usage to a minimum, and I'd love to not use it at all during the summer. And I've even taken it off my phone if I have a big week, or just if I feel like I need a break or I've been using it too much, I'll take it off for a week and just not worry about it. And then if I feel like checking something, I'll download the app again. So it's not a perfect system. Meredith, our sister, just introduced me to an app that helps you manage your social media usage. So you have to like say, are you sure you want to open the app? And I'd love to do something like that too, just so that if I am going on, it's maybe once a day, and it's because I like intentionally chose to spend 5 minutes and not, a 10-minute scroll because I just randomly opened my phone and had some time and was a little bit bored.
Yeah, I've seen that one too. I think I use that app, just like their basic version, and it asks you like how long you like a lot beforehand, how many times per day are you going to use it, and then like on average how long. And when it like makes you read like a quote before you like open the app, and the quote is usually about like how you spend your time, or like when you do something, it kind of just makes you feel bad about doing it. So sometimes you just kind of put it away and you don't. It's like, okay, I shouldn't really be doing this right now. But
wait, first of all, I think John originated. Your brother John was the one who first was using the app, and he showed it to Meredith over Thanksgiving. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mare told me today.
It's useful. It's a total attention grabber, like just the phone in general.
Isn't it crazy?
Because you don't always, people can go 20 or 30 minutes without a response. If you're like doing something, I was listening to this podcast about like switching between tasks and how your brain is like wired to do different tasks and stuff like that. So every time you check your phone, it totally like interrupts your like cycle of focus. So if you're like doing something, if you're writing or if you're doing a homework assignment, anything like that, even it takes like 10 minutes at least to like fully become focused on that like project, that whatever you're working on. And it doesn't have to be like work related. It can be anything. It takes like some time to get fully focused on it. And even checking your phone for like a minute totally breaks that focus. And you have to spend all that time like getting back into it. So it's better just like, I felt just blocking off times when I'm studying or doing other things that I don't want to be like interrupted. It's just no phone for those times because it just kind of messes up the whole thing when I have to check it. And then I'm like, not focused anymore.
And then whatever you are working on takes so much longer because you're trying to do a couple different things at once.
People are like, oh, it took me 10 hours to write a 3-page paper.
Like, how?
Maybe like, I don't think you were actually writing for 10 hours. I don't.
Even in graduate programs where everyone is working in administration or they've been teachers for many years, everyone struggles to get their work done, I've realized. And I think if everyone just was a little bit more mindful of social media usage, trying to multitask, and just managing their time a little bit more, we'd all be able to get those things done. Because a lot of the time it just doesn't seem as overwhelming to me. And I don't think it's because I think it's a time management issue. I don't think it's at all an ability related thing. I think most people are just trying to manage a lot of different tasks at once instead of focusing on one thing. But yeah, I don't love social media. I think when I use it, I've tried recently to think, if I want to go on, how can I connect with someone on social media? Can I comment something encouraging or share something that will make someone smile? I know Meredith and I end up sharing a lot of funny reels or something, funny things back and forth. So I think there are ways of using it a little bit to connect with other people that aren't just kind of passively scrolling. But I don't know. I think I'm still trying to figure out what works best. A lot of the time I just want to do no social media, but I do enjoy some little things about it.
I think it will be interesting to see. I mean, obviously now everyone kind of knows that it's not good for us all this time on the phone. It's adults and kids, everybody, right? So I wonder, like your generation, Owen, when you are raising your kids, how phones will be treated with kids like in 10 or 15 or 20 years from now. What do you guys think it'll be like then?
I think it'll be different. I mean, I don't know if I want like my kids to be on their phone super young. I don't want, I mentioned it, I've talked about it before, but the iPad at the table, like kids that I see everywhere, it's like they're making noise and doing all this stuff. It's easy to like just give them something to do. And I mean, I know it's definitely going to be like hard to not like give into that because it's so easy, but I think our generation is probably going to see a lot of the negative effects that it's had. People are going to be able to remember when they were like teenagers and had their phones, like all these bad experiences they had. And I don't think they're going to want to give that same experience to their kids. So I don't know, I think it might turn. I hope it turns around, but we're kind of the guinea pig generation for technology. Because I remember in middle school, kind of everybody got their first phones, but everybody got like smartphones. So it was, I was one of the first generations to have that. So we don't really know the long-term effects of that. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know if I can kind of already tell they're probably not good. So
I think it's mostly but it's not an evil thing. It's the displacement effect that you mentioned. It's what you're not doing. Like, It's not like everything you're doing on your phone is terrible, but it's like, it's less time that you're talking to people, or
it just takes away from
life. Yeah. It's like, I feel like it steals actual life.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, like, a lot of people will go, like if their spouse gets home from work, it's like, how often are you just on your phone instead of just like engaging in a conversation with them? I think there are different times when, I think it's hard, but you do have to think about if if you say family is one of your priorities, then are there any situations where your phone seems more like a priority than your family? Or if you have a spiritual life, like, are you going on your phone more than any kind of spiritual practice that you want to engage in? So like going back to the whole, what is it taking away from you? And are you able to manage your use effectively?
Well, I would love to keep talking. I don't know how long we've been going, but it's probably been long enough. But this has been really fun, and I love hearing you guys talk about these important topics that I think most people, young adults, should be talking about. And it's never too late also to kind of look at how you're living your life. I think a lot of older adults struggle with like maybe being on like phones too much or these things. So I think it's helpful, especially if we think about starting a new year, that it's a chance to maybe build some new identity capital as like maybe you're the kind of person who doesn't get on your phone first thing in the morning and you do other things during that time. And it's like, I think the other thing, and this is a Cal Newport thing, is the more like you are able to discipline yourself to do one thing, it translates to other things. So like if you become a person who works out, several times a week or lifts weights or whatever, it reads a book or reads 5 pages. Anytime you build on something like that, you're proving to yourself, like, I'm the kind of person who can stick with something. And so he always recommends just start small. Like if you're feeling like someone who, I never finished anything or I never accomplished anything, maybe it just requires like, can you be the kind of person who doesn't go on social media for a week or a month? Can you challenge yourself and just be able to see if you can do that and then maybe not allow it back in at the same rate?
I've seen a lot of people picking these things that they want to do every day or something they're trying to accomplish. A lot of times they pick a goal that's like way too high. It'll be like, I'm going to work out. It's like this New Year's, get ready. Your gyms are going to be busy because it's going to be everybody whose New Year's resolution is, I'm going to work out every day this year or something crazy like that. And they're not going to after like a week, January 20th, they start dying down a little bit. So people pick like a crazy goal like that and they're probably not going to stick with it. So I think taking something easy, like start working out one time a week, or like, I'm going to read a short book first. Like I kind of was off the reading wave for a while. And so I started with just a really small one. I finished it super fast and I just started picking up like that. So,
well, you made fun of me a few years ago when I was lifting 3-pound weights, arm exercises as part of, I was doing like the bike and arm light weights or whatever.
I said, to work up a little bit.
But that's what started. And now I'm doing like weight training with heavier weights, not as part of the bike, but I worked my way up very slowly. I started with doing like 5 minutes while on the bike. And now it's, 20 minutes or whatever, but I needed to ease my way into it.
And I think sometimes when we're talking about the next generation too, I think like a lot of the times we're tempted to say, how do I limit screen time for my kids? And most of it is modeling, like you can tell your kids that you don't want to give them a phone or that you want to limit their screen time, but they see when you check your emails at the dinner table and they see when you're using your phone a lot. And so what are you modeling, or what habits are you modeling for your kids too?
We were at a restaurant and this couple was playing cards and I was like, that is so cool. Like now that is like a unique thing. You know what I mean? Like, because it is sometimes like when you're at dinner, it's like, okay, maybe we don't have like so many topics to talk about. Let's like I do think that there's an element of some people just like, they don't know, whatever, but like a card game or having an activity actually can sometimes kind of break up the, I don't know, make it more fun. Okay. Well, this has been really fun. Thank you for helping me wrap up this series. I love talking to both of you and I look forward to the new year and watching you both as you continue just killing it as adults, from the younger part of your 20s to you're going to be 30 by the next time you come on the podcast. So Anyway, thanks for being on. Thanks for being great guests on the podcast and for helping me just talk about this topic and hopefully encourage some other people in their 20s that can be a challenging decade, but it can also be super rewarding and your brains are firing on all cylinders now. So this is a great time to learn some new things. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. As always, you can find notes and links in the show notes and at sunshine-parenting.com. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate you either sharing it with a friend or giving Sunshine Parenting a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I also invite you to read or listen to my book, Happy Campers: 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. It's provided encouragement and simple strategies for building character traits and social skills to more than 3,000 readers so far. Happy Campers is available as an audiobook and in print or digital wherever you buy your books. Here's to raising and being thriving adults.